In the secretive corridors of cryptanalysis, where silent battles are waged through intellect and code breaking, the course of a world at war hangs in the balance. Deep within a labyrinth of intercepted messages, Sam Harper, a brilliant cryptanalyst, races against time. As the waters of the Pacific surge with the imminent clash at Midway, it's his keen mind that holds the key to unveiling the enemy's covert strategies. Unseen by many, the fate of one of World War II's most critical battles rests in his hands. Every deciphered code brings the Allies a step closer to triumph or disaster. The future of nations is being written in a hidden language of numbers and letters, waiting for Sam Harper to reveal its secrets. The world was aflame with conflict. By 1942, the Second World War had engulfed nations in a battle for power, ideology, and survival. In the Pacific theater, a tense chess game of naval and air power was unfolding, one where intelligence and foresight were as crucial as bullets and bombs. At the heart of this conflict was the United States Navy's code-breaking unit, a place of secrets and shadows. Among the cryptanalysts who toiled day and night was a figure who would play a pivotal yet unrecognized role in one of the war's most decisive battles. This is the story of Sam Harper, a dedicated cryptanalyst whose keen intellect and tireless efforts were instrumental in the events leading up to the Battle of Midway. Sam sat in the dimly lit room surrounded by papers and cryptographic equipment. The constant hum of the machines provided a background score to his intense concentration. He was a man of average build, with a sharp eye that missed little. His colleagues often joked that Sam could find patterns in the chaos of the stars if he stared long enough. The door to the room creaked open, and Commander Joseph Rochefort, head of the code-breaking unit, stepped in. His presence was always a mix of stern authority and scholarly curiosity. "Harper, any progress on the JN-25?" Rochefort asked, referring to the latest version of the Japanese Navy's code. Sam looked up, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "It's complex, sir, but I believe we're close to a breakthrough. The patterns are there, just hidden beneath layers of deliberate obfuscation." Rochefort nodded, his face a mask of seriousness. "We need that breakthrough, Harper. Washington is breathing down my neck. They know the Japanese are planning something big. We need to know what, and we need to know yesterday." Sam returned his gaze to the papers strewn across his desk. "I understand the urgency, sir. I'll have something for you soon. I can feel it." The commander placed a reassuring hand on Sam's shoulder. "I trust your instincts, Harper. You have a knack for seeing through the enemy's veil." As Rochefort left the room, Sam turned his attention back to the cryptic symbols and numbers before him. The weight of his task was not lost on him. He knew that the key to deciphering the Japanese plans lay in his hands. It was a puzzle that he, and only he, could solve. Outside, the world was at war, but inside this quiet room, Sam Harper waged a battle of wits against an unseen foe, a battle that would have far-reaching consequences in the waters of the Pacific. As the night deepened, the lines and dots on the paper seemed to dance before his eyes, but Sam's determination did not waver. He was on the verge of uncovering a secret that would change the course of the war, a secret hidden within the scrambled letters and numbers of the Japanese code. The early morning sun filtered through the blinds of the cramped, cluttered office where Sam Harper continued his relentless pursuit of the elusive JN-25 code. Books on cryptography, piles of decrypted messages, and scribbled notes covered every available surface. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and the faint buzz of tension. Sam's journey into the world of cryptanalysis was not a conventional one. A mathematics professor before the war, his fascination with puzzles and codes had led him to join the Navy as a cryptanalyst. His natural aptitude for pattern recognition and a dogged determination made him a valuable asset to Commander Rochefort's team. As he pored over the latest batch of intercepted messages, Sam recalled a conversation he had with his mentor, Dr. Elizabeth Friedman, a pioneer in cryptology. Her words echoed in his mind. "Every code is a language, Sam. To break it, you must think like its creator, understand their intentions, and then find the flaw in their design." It was this philosophy that guided Sam's approach. He believed that within the complexity of JN-25, there was a simplicity waiting to be discovered, a consistent pattern that would reveal the Japanese Navy's plans. The door opened, and Lieutenant Grace Harris, a fellow cryptanalyst, entered the room. Grace was one of the few women in the unit, known for her sharp wit and keen insight. "Morning, Sam. Still wrestling with the JN Dragon?" Grace asked, setting down a fresh cup of coffee for him. Sam nodded, rubbing his tired eyes. "It's like trying to solve a riddle in a language I barely understand for a question I don't know." Grace smiled, pulling up a chair next to him. "Well, then let's find the question together. Sometimes, a fresh pair of eyes can see what's been hiding in plain sight." Together, they pored over the messages, tracing patterns, testing theories, and discarding dead ends. Hours turned into days as they chased down every possible lead. Sam appreciated Grace's perspective. She often saw things in a way that he missed. During a late-night session, a new idea struck Sam. He remembered a peculiar repetitive pattern he had noticed earlier but hadn't fully explored. With renewed vigor, he dived back into the data. "Grace, look at this sequence here," Sam pointed out excitedly. "It's been repeated in several messages, but with slight variations. What if this is the key to unlocking the rest of the code?" Grace leaned in, examining the sequence. "You might be onto something, Sam. If we can crack this sequence, we might just crack JN-25. The race against time and secrecy continued. Each day brought new challenges, but Sam and Grace remained undeterred. They knew that their efforts were more than an intellectual exercise. They were an essential part of the war effort, a battle fought not with guns and ships, but with minds and codes. As Sam and Grace delved deeper into the complexities of JN-25, they were unaware that their work was about to turn the tide of war in the Pacific, changing the course of history in ways they could scarcely imagine. The days melded into one another in the dimly lit room where Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris worked tirelessly. The walls of the office seemed to close in on them, filled with the incessant ticking of the clock and the endless rustling of papers. The task before them was monumental, breaking the JN-25 code, a labyrinthine puzzle that held the key to the Japanese Navy's plans. Sam's eyes were strained and red, a testament to the countless hours spent staring at intercepted messages. Grace, equally weary, remained a source of unwavering support. Their minds were consumed by numbers, letters, and the endless possibilities of what they could signify. "Remember what Dr. Friedman said, Sam. Every code tells a story," Grace reminded him as they hit yet another dead end. Sam nodded, his focus unbroken. "Yes, and every story has its rhythm. We just need to find it." As they dissected the code, patterns began to emerge like stars in a previously dark sky. Each symbol, each sequence was a piece of a larger puzzle. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. A sequence that had puzzled them for weeks finally made sense. It was a moment of clarity in a sea of confusion. Grace's eyes widened as she looked at the decoded message. "Sam, this is it. This is their plan. They're targeting Midway." Sam's heart raced as the significance of their discovery dawned on him. This was the intelligence the U.S. Navy desperately needed. If the Japanese were planning to attack Midway, then the U.S. could plan a counterattack. This information could change the course of the war in the Pacific. Without wasting a moment, Sam grabbed the decoded message and rushed to Commander Rochefort's office. The commander was in a meeting with several high-ranking officers, maps and charts spread out before them. "Commander Rochefort, sir, we've broken the code," Sam announced breathlessly, holding out the decrypted message. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Sam. Rochefort took the paper and read it carefully. The lines on his face deepened as he realized the magnitude of the information. "Gentlemen, this changes everything," Rochefort declared, his voice steady but charged with urgency. "Harper, Harris, your work may have just saved countless lives and turned the tide of this war." Sam and Grace exchanged a look of relief and pride. They had done more than break a code. They had uncovered a secret that would give the U.S. Navy a fighting chance against the formidable Japanese fleet. As plans were hastily redrawn and orders dispatched, Sam and Grace returned to their office. They knew their job was far from over. The Japanese could change their code at any moment, and there would be more messages to decode. But for now, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet satisfaction. In the shadows of the war room, two cryptanalysts had altered the course of history, armed only with their intellect and an unbreakable determination to serve their country. The Battle of Midway was on the horizon, and thanks to Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris, the U.S. Navy was no longer in the dark. After the revelation of the Japanese plans to attack Midway, the atmosphere in the cryptanalysis unit shifted palpably. The once academic pursuit of code breaking had taken on a grave, urgent nature. Sam Harper, sitting at his desk surrounded by a sea of papers, felt the weight of this responsibility more than ever. He and Lieutenant Grace Harris had achieved the near impossible, but success was a double-edged sword. With their discovery came the heavy burden of what it meant. Lives were now at stake based on the information they had unearthed. Grace noticed the change in Sam. His usual focused, methodical demeanor had given way to a more contemplative, almost burdened presence. "It's a lot to carry, isn't it?" she asked quietly, handing him a cup of coffee. Sam looked up, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotion he seldom displayed. "We did our job, Grace, but knowing that people will go into battle based on our work, it's overwhelming." Grace nodded in agreement. "We're part of something much bigger than ourselves, Sam. It's daunting, but remember, we're helping to save lives too." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Rochefort. "Harper, Harris, I need your eyes on something," he said, laying a new set of intercepted messages on their desk. As they began to work on the new batch of codes, Sam couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Each decoded message was a potential trigger for action, a catalyst for life or death decisions. The cryptic symbols and numbers he had once viewed as purely intellectual challenges now bore the gravity of impending conflict. Later that day, as Sam walked through the naval base, he saw young sailors and pilots full of energy and determination, unaware of the crucial role that his and Grace's work had played in their upcoming mission. He wondered about their stories, their families, and whether they understood the true nature of the risk they were about to face. That night, Sam lay awake in his bunk, the decoded message of the Midway attack plan etched in his mind. He thought of the Japanese sailors on the other side of the ocean, equally unaware of how their codes had been compromised, how their plans were now laid bare to their enemy. The enormity of the war, the complexity of his role in it, and the lives that hung in the balance, it was a sobering realization. Sam understood that the work he and Grace did was more than solving puzzles. It was a crucial part of the war effort, a contribution that, while hidden from the public eye, was vital in its own right. As dawn broke, Sam returned to his desk, a renewed sense of purpose in his actions. He knew the days ahead would be filled with more codes to break, more secrets to uncover. But for now, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with his intellect and the unwavering belief in the importance of his work. In the quiet, unassuming room of the cryptanalysis unit, Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris continued their silent war, a war fought not with guns and bullets, but with brains and codes, a war where knowledge was both their weapon and their burden. The days leading up to the Battle of Midway were a flurry of activity. The U.S. Navy, armed with the critical intelligence provided by Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris, was mobilizing for what would be a pivotal confrontation in the Pacific theater. In the cryptanalysis unit, the mood was a blend of tension and cautious optimism. Sam and Grace, along with the rest of the team, continued their vigilant work, deciphering any further communications that might provide additional insights or last-minute changes in Japanese plans. Sam, though mentally exhausted, was fueled by a sense of urgency. The decoded message had set in motion a series of events that would soon culminate in a massive naval engagement. He was keenly aware that the accuracy and timeliness of their intelligence were crucial. As he worked, Commander Rochefort entered the room, his expression serious. "Harper, Harris, I've just come from a briefing with Admiral Nimitz. Our fleet is moving into position, but we're playing a high-stakes game here. Are we certain Midway is the target?" Sam looked up, meeting Rochefort's gaze. "Yes, sir. The latest intercepts confirm it. The Japanese are committing a significant portion of their fleet to the operation. They believe they have the element of surprise." Rochefort nodded solemnly. "This intelligence is our best weapon. It's given us the chance to meet them head-on." The conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside. A young naval officer rushed in, handing a new set of intercepted messages to Rochefort. "Sir, fresh intelligence from the Pacific." Sam and Grace immediately set to work on the new messages. The room was silent except for the sound of their focused analysis. Minutes turned into hours as they deciphered the complex code. Finally, Sam leaned back in his chair, a look of determination on his face. "It's confirmed, Commander. The Japanese fleet is en route to Midway. Their main strike force will arrive within days." Rochefort's eyes hardened with resolve. "Excellent work, both of you. This information will give our forces a fighting chance. Harper, Harris, I can't overstate the importance of what you've done here. You've changed the playing field." As Rochefort left to relay the information, Sam and Grace shared a moment of quiet acknowledgement. They had provided their fleet with the most powerful weapon of all, foreknowledge. But with it came the realization that the battle's outcome was now, more than ever, dependent on the bravery and skill of the men who would face the enemy at sea. That evening, as Sam prepared to leave the office, he took a moment to look at the maps and charts detailing the upcoming battle. The tiny island of Midway, a speck in the vast Pacific Ocean, was about to become the center of a monumental clash. Sam knew that the coming battle would be a testament to the efforts of countless, unsung heroes like him and Grace. In the silent war of cryptanalysis, they had done their part. Now it was up to the sailors and aviators to do theirs. With the fate of the Pacific hanging in the balance, the Battle of Midway was imminent. The stage was set, the players were in motion, and history was about to be written in the unforgiving expanse of the ocean. The dawn of June 4th, 1942, broke with a sense of impending history. Far out in the Pacific, American and Japanese naval forces were converging in a confrontation that would shape the course of the war. In the cryptanalysis unit, Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris were acutely aware that the battle they had anticipated was now unfolding. The office was unusually quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by a tense stillness. Sam and Grace, along with the rest of their team, were gathered around a radio, listening intently to the transmissions coming in from Midway. Each report, each crackle of the radio, brought news of the engagement. "The Japanese have commenced their attack on Midway," announced one of the officers, reading from a newly intercepted message. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. The moment of truth had arrived. The intelligence they had provided was now being tested in the crucible of combat. He exchanged a glance with Grace, her expression mirroring his own mix of anxiety and hope. As the day progressed, reports from the front lines painted a picture of a fierce and chaotic battle. Japanese aircraft had bombed Midway Island, but American forces, forewarned by Sam and Grace's intelligence, had been prepared. The real struggle, however, was taking place at sea, where the fate of the American and Japanese fleets hung in the balance. Sam listened intently as a transmission came through, detailing a daring American counterattack. U.S. dive bombers had located and were engaging the Japanese carriers. His heart raced with every update. This was the moment that could turn the tide of the battle. "The Kaga has been hit," came the exhilarating call over the radio. Cheers erupted in the office, but Sam remained focused. The battle was far from over. Minutes later, another transmission confirmed hits on two more Japanese carriers, the Akagi and the Soryu. The tide was turning in America's favor, thanks in no small part to the intelligence that had positioned their forces for this very opportunity. As the day wore on, the full scale of the American victory became apparent. A fourth carrier, the Hiryu, had been sunk, and the Japanese fleet was in retreat. The Battle of Midway, against all odds, was a decisive victory for the United States. Sam and Grace, exhausted yet exhilarated, finally allowed themselves a moment to reflect on their role in this historic victory. Their tireless work, decoding the Japanese plans, had been a critical factor in the battle's outcome. Commander Rochefort entered the room, his face beaming with pride. "Harper, Harris, your work saved countless lives today and shifted the balance of power in the Pacific. You two and this team have made a significant contribution to our victory." The office erupted in a subdued celebration, but for Sam and Grace, the joy was tempered by the knowledge of the cost at which this victory had come. They thought of the brave men who had fought and fallen in the skies and waters of Midway. The Battle of Midway was over, but the war continued. Sam and Grace knew that their work was far from done. There would be more codes to break, more intelligence to gather. But for now, they had played their part in altering the course of history, a testament to the power of intelligence and the unsung heroes who wielded it. In the days following the Battle of Midway, the magnitude of the American victory began to sink in. It was a turning point in the Pacific War, a moment where the tide had shifted decisively against the Japanese Navy. For Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris, the aftermath was a time of reflection and subdued acknowledgement of their role in this historic event. The cryptanalysis unit, once a hive of relentless activity, had taken on a quieter, more contemplative atmosphere. Sam and Grace, along with their colleagues, were heroes in the truest sense, yet their heroism was of a kind that would never be celebrated in public parades or on the front pages of newspapers. Commander Rochefort called a meeting to debrief the team. "Your work was instrumental in our victory at Midway," he began, his voice tinged with both pride and gravity. "But remember, our efforts here must remain classified. What you've done is vital to national security, but it must also remain in the shadows." Sam felt a mix of pride and resignation at these words. He had always known that the nature of his work meant anonymity, but the reality of it hit him afresh in the wake of such a significant victory. After the meeting, Grace approached Sam. "It's strange, isn't it?" she said, "to know that we've changed the course of the war, yet we can't talk about it, not even with our families." Sam nodded, understanding her sentiment. "It's the life we chose, Grace. We knew we wouldn't be the ones in the spotlight, but what matters is the difference we made. In the following weeks, as reports of the victory at Midway made headlines, Sam and Grace continued their work. They knew the Japanese would be changing their codes and that new challenges lay ahead. The work of a cryptanalyst was never done. The war continued to demand their skills and dedication. One evening, as they were leaving the office, Sam stopped and looked up at the stars. "You know, Grace," he said thoughtfully, "in some ways, I feel like we're like these stars. Not really visible in the daylight, not seeking attention, but still there, still making an impact." Grace smiled. "I like that analogy, Sam. We may not be recognized for our work, but we'll always know what we did. And that's enough." As the war raged on, Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris remained committed to their secret battle. They were the unseen warriors, the silent sentinels who fought with their minds and intellect. Their contributions would not be celebrated in their time, but their legacy would live on in the annals of history, a testament to the crucial role of intelligence in warfare. The Battle of Midway was over, but for Sam, Grace, and the countless other unsung heroes of the war, their silent, vigilant fight continued, their contributions forever etched in the shadows of history. The war eventually drew to a close, leaving a world forever changed in its wake. For Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris, the end of the conflict brought a sense of relief mixed with introspection. They, along with their colleagues in the cryptanalysis unit, had played a crucial but hidden role in shaping the outcome of the war. Years later, long after the guns had fallen silent and the treaties had been signed, the true impact of their work at Midway and beyond began to emerge into the light of public knowledge. The breaking of the Japanese codes, once a tightly guarded secret, was now recognized as a pivotal factor in the Allied victory in the Pacific. Sam, now retired and often found with a book in hand, reflected on those years with a quiet sense of pride. The world had moved on, but the memories of the war, of the intense days and nights deciphering codes, remained vivid in his mind. One evening, as he sat on his porch, his granddaughter, Emily, came to sit beside him with a history textbook in her hands. "Grandpa, we learned about the Battle of Midway in school today," she said, her eyes wide with curiosity. "The book says that breaking the Japanese codes was really important. Did you know about that?" Sam smiled, a twinkle in his eye. "Yes, Emily, I did know about that. In fact, I was a part of it." Emily's eyes grew even wider. "You were? Grandpa, why didn't you ever tell us?" "It was a secret for a long time, and by the time we could talk about it, it just seemed like something from another life," Sam explained gently. "But it was important work. We didn't fight with guns, but with our minds." Grace, too, found herself reflecting on those years. She had gone on to use her skills in cryptography in the burgeoning field of computer science. But the lessons of the war, the importance of vigilance, and the value of intelligence remained with her. In the years that followed, as the role of cryptanalysis in World War II became more widely known and celebrated, Sam and Grace received some recognition for their contributions. Yet, for both of them, the true reward was not in medals or accolades, but in the knowledge that they had done their part in the fight against tyranny. Their story, like those of many unsung heroes, was a testament to the unseen battles that are often crucial to victory. They had worked in the shadows, but their legacy was now a part of history. As Sam and Grace grew older, they took comfort in knowing that their quiet, diligent efforts had helped shape a world that their grandchildren could grow up in peace. Their war had been fought in the secrecy of code rooms and behind the closed doors of intelligence meetings, but its impact was as lasting and significant as any battle fought in the open. In the legacy of shadows, Sam Harper and Lieutenant Grace Harris stood as silent sentinels, a reminder of the power of intelligence, the importance of duty, and the profound impact of those who serve in the quiet corners of history. As the years turned into decades, the story of the Battle of Midway, with its strategy, bravery, and turning points, was passed down through history books, documentaries, and personal accounts. But beyond the well-known narratives, there were echoes of valor from lesser-known heroes whose contributions were just as vital to the Allied victory. Captain Joseph Rochefort, the head of the cryptanalysis unit at Pearl Harbor, was a key figure in the victory at Midway. His leadership and insight into Japanese intentions were crucial in providing the intelligence needed to foresee the attack on Midway. For years, his contributions were overshadowed, but history eventually recognized him as one of the pivotal figures in the battle's outcome. Ensign George Gay, the sole survivor of Torpedo Squadron 8, became a symbol of the extraordinary bravery shown by the American pilots. His squadron's attack, though devastating in losses, played a crucial role in the battle, drawing Japanese planes down to a lower altitude and contributing to the vulnerability of the Japanese carriers to later attacks. Commander John C. Waldron, leader of Torpedo Squadron 8, led his men in a valiant attack against overwhelming odds. His decision to engage the enemy, despite the high risk, demonstrated exceptional courage and commitment. Though he did not survive the battle, his actions embodied the spirit of sacrifice that defined Midway. Lieutenant Commander Richard Halsey Best, a dive bomber pilot, played a pivotal role by scoring direct hits on two Japanese carriers, the Akagi and the Hiryu. His precision and bravery under fire were instrumental in crippling the Japanese carrier force. The maintenance crews on Midway Island and aboard the U.S. carriers were unsung heroes in their own right. Working tirelessly to keep aircraft operational, these men and women ensured that the pilots had the necessary equipment to fight and survive. In the years that followed, as veterans of Midway passed away, their stories of bravery and sacrifice were preserved by historians, families, and those who recognize the importance of remembering the past. Museums, memorials, and books served as custodians of their legacy, ensuring that future generations would learn about the battle and the many heroes who played a part in it. The Battle of Midway stood not just as a pivotal military victory, but as a testament to the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a story of intelligence and bravery, of strategy and sacrifice, and of the often overlooked individuals who together shaped the course of history. In this tapestry of courage, the contributions of Sam Harper, Lieutenant Grace Harris, and their peers in cryptanalysis were woven in, a reminder that behind every act of bravery on the battlefield, there were countless others in the shadows, fighting their own crucial battles to secure victory. As the echoes of valor from Midway continued to resonate, they served as a timeless reminder of the power of unity, the importance of each individual's contributions, and the enduring spirit of those who stand up in the face of adversity to fight for a cause greater than themselves.